ahead and open up to Genesis 27. So I think what I want to do here is just take it in little sections, say a little bit, see what questions or insights you guys might have, and then just kind of wrap it up at the end. It's an important chapter, and there's a lot to learn here. When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his older son and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." Now you'll notice here in verse 1, Esau's called his older son. And later on, I think Rebecca uses the same language there, older son. And the normal term here would be firstborn son, right? Any idea why that term might be avoided?
Because he doesn't have the birthright?
Yeah. Firstborn comes with a certain understanding to it of position. Okay, we see that like in the book of Hebrews of Yeshua. He's the firstborn among many brothers. We also see it in Genesis chapter 22, where that's the chapter where God calls Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. Obviously, God doesn't have him go through with it, but there Isaac is called his firstborn. Take your firstborn, right? But Isaac's not his oldest son, is he?
No.
Does it call him his? Maybe I got that wrong. It calls him your only son. Forgive me, I should have looked that up. But anyway, we can see in various parts of Scripture that firstborn is not just a designation of, that's the first one who's born, but there's a certain spiritual connotation with it, a certain connotation of inheritance with it that Esau has lost. All right. Now, in this chapter, you guys have read it, I'm sure. In this chapter, Esau is going to lose the blessing. Earlier, he lost the birthright.
He gave it away.
Right. So he sold it for a pot of stew. So, right. And in both cases, we have the meal is pivotal to the story, isn't it? Right. Any idea why the meal might be pivotal in both cases?
Well, I know some cultures, some religions, food is like a very, very big thing because the fall started with food. Fall was eating food we're not supposed to eat. And so it's like, it's really important to not let food reign over you.
Right.
So, maybe that's just an echo of that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good connection.
Let food not reign over him. That's why he gave up his birthright.
Right.
But I don't know why. I mean, apparently Isaac is very obsessed with a certain kind of meal. I don't know. Yeah.
So, yeah, there does seem to be a certain carnality to what's going on here, and that now it was God's plan all along that Jacob should be the one who's blessed, right? That's what, Rebecca cries out to God, why are these two tumbling around in my stomach? And the Lord answers her in chapter 25, starting at verse 23. 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, the older shall serve the younger. So it was always God's will that Jacob should be the blessed, right? And we even read later on in Scripture, Jacob have I loved, right? But Esau have I hated. Hated there, of course, means rejected. It doesn't mean a literal hate. So Jacob was always the chosen one, but it came about in a way that it shouldn't come about. And that carnality, that drive for food, made way for some pretty terrible stuff. Let's go on to verse 5 here, back at chapter 27. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me delicious food, that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. His mother said to him, Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go, bring them to me. Any thoughts on that or questions?
I think it's weird that the only worry he seems to have, the only regret he seems to have, is getting away with it.
Yep.
Instead of just doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Jacob's very immature at this point, right? We see him maturing over the course of the narrative in Genesis, but at this point, it's not maybe this is wrong, maybe this is right, but what are the consequences gonna be, right? And that's we see that later on as well. On his travels out to Laban, right? He has a vision of God, and he's like, surely this is the place of God, and he makes a deal with God. If you'll bless my ventures here, then you'll be my God. It's spiritual immaturity. Of course, there's an important lesson in there for us as well. What is our concern? Very often we think that way, in the natural self. What is this doing for me? Rather than does God or does God not deserve my life? Does God or does God not deserve my worship? Do I feel like it or do I not feel like it? Am I spiritual or not spiritual today? Do I like the song? Do I not like the song? All that stuff is spiritual immaturity, right? The spiritual maturity is he's God. He determines right and wrong. He's worthy of my life. He's worthy of my obedience. Of course, there's none of that in Jacob at this point. So, and may there be none of it in us. Lord, purge us from that. I'd like to bring out a little nuanced part here that you wouldn't be able to get from the English. Verse 11. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Now, if we go to Joshua chapter 11, verse 17. Okay. This is Joshua conquering the land, and it's kind of laying out where the boundaries of that land are to be for Israel. From Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir, as far as Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon, below Hermon, and he captured all their kings and struck them and made them and put them to death. Now, chapter 12, same book, Joshua 12, verse 7. And these are the kings of the land whom Joshua and the people of Israel defeated on the west side of Jordan, from Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak that rises towards Seir. We have in these two verses the word Halak and Seir. And it's the border between Israel and Edom, or it will become the border between Israel and Edom. It's like, this is your boundary, Israel, right? On the other side of Seir, that's Edom's territory. Edom being the descendant of Esau. What's interesting is the coupling in those two verses of Halak and Seir. And if you go back to Genesis 27:11, we see Halak and Seir, a little different spelling for Seir, but same, pretty much the same root letters. The little yud there is missing, but it's just too close to be a coincidence. That Esau is a hairy man. Esau is Seir, right? That's his territory. Jacob is a smooth man. Jacob is Halak, right? It's kind of like a little hint in Genesis of, hey, there's a boundary here, and Jacob's like a little afraid to cross that boundary. Be careful you're not taking what's not yours, you know? There is a boundary and there is a blessing for Edom, for Esau, right? Seir, right? There is an inheritance and there is a blessing for Jacob, Halak. And so, anyway, I just thought that was a interesting thing there, you know? And of course, there's a spiritual lesson in that, right? There is this, you know, it says in James to avoid selfish ambition, you know. There is a spirit of just receiving what's yours and not going after what's not yours, right? We see that all the time. Congregations break up because everybody thinks they can be the better pastor or the better rabbi or the better worship leader or whatever, and people are grasping for control even within the body of Messiah. And this is, you know, this is not what we are to do. Sometimes there's marital strife. You know, no, I'm the man of the house. Well, maybe God has given the woman more wisdom in this area. Back off, it's not your area. You know, but she's messing it up. Back off, it's not your area. Let the Lord have his will and have his way. You know, we've got to get rid of this selfish grasping, especially in terms of our spirituality, in our spiritual exercise, and in our religious practice, because there has a particularly intense consequence. We'll talk about that some more later on. So, all right. Any other thoughts or questions on that section there? All right, verse 14. So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, right? The two young goats. And his mother prepared delicious food such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went in to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy, like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He answered, "I am." Then he said, "Bring it near to me that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near and kiss me, my son." So he came near and kissed him. And Isaac smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him and said, "See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." Thoughts, comments, questions on that part?
I got a few.
Sure.
Or at least two.
Good.
Number one, it really was God's blessing to give the whole time.
Yeah.
And two, sometimes like I use my grandma for an example. Like some of the people in the family would take advantage of her, lie to her, things like this.
Right.
And she would still give them whatever she needed, knowing there was something fishy going on.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe he kind of feels that there.
Yeah.
It might be kind of fishy, but
Yeah.
whoever it is, this is who brought me what I wanted.
Yeah. Right. He got the meal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There's definitely some hesitation in Isaac's moving forward, but I think in the end he is convinced that it's Esau. But but yeah. But you're right. The blessing is really the Lord's to give. So it's unfortunate it came about in this way, through deception, but it was the Lord's to give. Anything else? This is the first passage in the Bible. It's not the first passage of blessing. We see a lot of blessing, right, associated with Abraham. That begins in what chapter? You remember?
16 or something?
A little earlier than that, the first mention of blessing of Abraham, or Abram. Chapter 12. That's probably a good passage to be really familiar with. That's the first call of Abram before he was Abraham. "Now the Lord said to Abram, Go into your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing." Okay, so there's lots of blessing of Abraham starting at that point, and then the blessing passes on to Isaac, right? And we get the idea of, not the idea, but the theme of covenant in chapter 15. Okay, so we associate blessing and covenant. This is the first place where we associate blessing with kingship. Even though the word king is not specifically used within the blessing, it's obvious, right? The idea of nations bowing down to you, being Lord over your brothers, right? So this, and this of course is not about Jacob as much as it is about his descendants, right? From you will come a king that the nations will bow down to, and that even your mother's sons, your brothers, will bow down to, right? The kingship is going to be yours. The blessing is going to come through kingship. Numbers 24. Let's go. There's a lot of these are Balaam's oracles. Okay, Balaam was not a man of God, but nonetheless the Lord spoke through him, right? And so there's no dismissing these prophecies here. Verse 7, for example, talks about a king. Water shall flow from his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. His king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. Okay? Verse 17, I see him, but not now. So he's prophesying. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter, which is the ruling staff, shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down all the sons of Sheth. Edom, right, Esau's descendants, shall be dispossessed. Seir, there's that word again. Also his enemies shall be dispossessed. Israel is doing valiantly. And one from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the survivors of cities. Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. What's the root word for anointed there? What's the Hebrew for anointed? Mashiach. What's Mashiach in English? Messiah, right. This is one of the, most of the Messianic prophecies, we don't actually get the word Messiah in it, right? We just have to extrapolate the themes and the meaning and see that it's a Messianic prophecy. Here we actually get the word Messiah, right? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his Mashiach, his Messiah, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs, and the Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. The blessings of the Lord, both the judgment, the wrath, and the blessings, are to be fulfilled through the king that comes from Jacob. I don't want to belabor it too much, but if you go to Psalm 110, Psalm 110 is the passage in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, that is most quoted in the Brit Hadasha, the New Testament. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord sends forth from Zion your mighty scepter, rule in the midst of your enemies. Right? And that's quoted. I'll just give one example here, Matthew 22. We'll start at verse 41. Matthew 22:41. Now while the Pharisees were gathered together, Yeshua asked them a question, saying, what do you think about the Christ, about the Messiah? Whose son is he? They said to him, the son of David. He said to them, how is it then that David in the Spirit calls him Lord, saying, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies at your feet. If then David calls him Lord, how is he his son? Right? And we can also go to Hebrews 1, which quotes that psalm as well. This is the start. That's why Genesis is so important, right? So many themes begin here. The theme of sacrifice to the Lord, right? Noah comes out of the ark, and God didn't just put the rainbow in the sky. God's covenant with Noah is a response to the sacrifice that he offers after coming out of the ark, right? That covenant as a response to sacrifice. I will never again do this, right? There's a blessing of protection that comes from being under the covenant, and the covenant as a response to a godly sacrifice. So that's super important. Abraham's near sacrifice of Isaac, right? God will provide for himself the lamb, right? Where's the lamb? God will provide the lamb, right? These key messianic themes are all throughout Genesis, starting as really as early as Genesis 3:15, where God promises the seed through Eve of the one that, even though his heel will be bitten by the serpent, he'll crush the head of the serpent. There's a theme of hope that will come through the seed. And here we get the theme of kingship and rulership. And later on in Genesis 49, we'll see that is honed in on a certain tribe. Which tribe would that be? Judah, right. So here we get it, okay, there's going to come a great king from Jacob, right? Just like Balaam also prophesied, a great king is coming, right? Through Jacob. A star will arise, the scepter won't depart. And then in 49, it'll get narrowed down, not just any of Jacob's sons, but no, it's got to be somebody from the tribe of Judah. We'll get to that when we get to chapter 49. So blessing is associated with kingship. Verse 30. Any other thoughts or comments on that? All right. Verse 30, Genesis 27:30. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, Esau his brother came in from hunting. He also prepared delicious food and brought it to his father and said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" He answered, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Esau calls himself the firstborn, right? That's not what he's called earlier. Jacob also called, when he's mimicking Esau, he says, "I'm your firstborn, Esau." But the narrator in verse 1, remember, the older son.
Yeah.
Right? So Esau hasn't let go of that. Right? I'm still the firstborn. "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Then Isaac trembled very violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came, and I have blessed him? Yes, and he shall be blessed." Right? And if you are one who marks up your Bible as I am, that little sentence there should probably be underlined. He shall be blessed, no matter what. It's not good circumstances, right? It was in deception. He didn't do it right, but nonetheless, he was blessed, and he shall be blessed. As soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing." Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. Okay. Of course, speaking about the birthright and now the blessing. "He took away my birthright, and behold, now he's taken away my blessing." Then he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to you for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Esau his father answered and said to him, "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high." And the land of Edom is very dry. "By your sword you shall live." And that's also true, right? Edom became a place of warfare and raiding those who had passed by and such. "And you shall serve your brother." Right? Israel became this stronger nation and often ruled over Edom. "And when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck." Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are approaching, then I will kill my brother Jacob. But the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, behold, your brother Esau comforts himself about you by planning to kill you. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban, my brother, in Haran, and stay with him a while until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereft of you both in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I loathe my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women like these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be to me? All right, so we just read starting at verse, 30? Any thoughts or questions on that section? I think it's kind of funny. Rebekah sets them all up to do this, right? And then she says in verse 45, until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him. It's like not what we have done, or, oh, this was a bad plan, now he's angry, I'm so sorry. It's like, anyway. What does this, what pitfalls, and maybe some of the women could answer this, or anybody, what pitfalls does this story maybe reveal? And I don't have an answer in my mind. I would love to have a woman's perspective on this. What pitfalls does this story maybe reveal about mother-son relationships when they're out of balance?
To me, it's more a relationship with the father.
Oh, that's a good point.
If she had waited, I'm sure God would have worked out that blessing for him. Instead, she felt like she had to manipulate it and make it happen instead of waiting on the Lord.
Yeah. This manipulation to bring things about rather than
The
trust.
Lord had promised that blessing, then he would have gotten it somehow.
Yeah.
In an honorable, hopefully right way. Instead
Yeah.
of her manipulating the whole thing,
Yeah.
making it happen.
You're absolutely right. I've heard people preach on this, trying to defend Rebekah and Jacob. Oh, Esau wasn't wise enough to see it, or I'm sorry, Isaac wasn't wise enough to see it, so they had to take charge, and it was the Lord's will, and but it's deceptive. It's just not right, And unfortunately, passages like this have been used to promote anti-Semitism. You see, Israel, it's a nation full of deceivers. Just look at their father Jacob, and so, and I think it's counteracting that anti-Semitic bent to this story, where people are trying to smooth it all out and say no, it was okay, and such. But that's one of the things that's so amazing and different about the Bible than other ancient literature, is that other ancient literature, your heroes and the starters of your nation, the fathers of your nation, they're put up on this pedestal, they can do no wrong. But it speaks to the Bible's authenticity and truth, that it reveals embarrassing things, even about, Israel, or any non-believer could say the same thing about the church. Look at your father, Peter, and right? Look at all the, Peter, Peter is one that denied Yeshua 3 times. Look, he's so weak, and so, you're all a bunch of weaklings. No, it emphasizes God's sovereignty, that he continues to work and to bring about his blessing and his covenant, his kingship, his kingdom through weak and fallen people. It speaks of God's holiness, that the only one holy in most of these stories is God himself, It speaks of his grace, it speaks of his mercy, and as I said, it speaks of the Bible's authenticity. right? This is not, if you're going to make up stories about your nation, you're going to put yourself in the best light possible, right? But this is an accurate recording of what happened.
To hand it to Esau too, because Esau later forgave him for that.
Yeah.
God, so
Yeah.
even the people that aren't God's chosen, they
Right.
came out shining better than Jacob, really.
Right.
God forgive him.
Yeah.
And I guess Jacob didn't know Rebecca had a hand in this, really? Or
Jake. Oh,
Isaac. She was Isaac.
yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Like,
As far as we know,
say if he held her accountable or anything.
yeah. As far,
Deceit.
right. I mean, obviously, it became known later on. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it in the Bible. But I think as far as the context of this story, when it happened, it seemed like only Jacob and Rebecca were aware. So, yeah. One thing that I noticed in chapter 27, verse 4, Isaac says to Esau, go bring me the food I like, that my soul may bless you, right? This is like a heartfelt, it's from my soul, that my soul may bless you. Jacob, when he is pretending to be Esau, in verse 19, he says, okay, I've done as you told me, so that your soul may bless me, right? But Esau doesn't use that language. It just says that you may bless me, right? Verse 31, right? I do think that there's maybe that's a little hint anyway, that goes along with this theme of the carnality of the food that we see with Esau. Just a little bit of a pattern of Esau's inability to see the deeper things, to see on the surface level. I mean, not that Jacob's any great character in this story either, but Jacob at least seems, the text seems to be hinting at something deeper in Jacob,
Just a little bit of hope, even when he doesn't go right away with his mom to pull it off. He stops and questions it at least a little bit.
Well, he's at least got the propensity to see that a spiritual aspect to this, that there's something deep going on, even though Jacob doesn't get it yet, And there are people that just want to live on that surface level, It's just that constant, what good does it do for me, right? And we've got to guard ourselves against that as well, of course, It's a very, human beings have the propensity to be like really deep, God, if not, God could have just stopped creation with the chimpanzees or whatever, but we've got the propensity to be like really deep, what's going on in the soul. Now, sometimes that word soul just means human, right? There, sometimes in the census there are X numbers of souls, right? And that word soul can even be used of animals occasionally. But in this case, it seems to be something deeper. That's that other meaning of soul. There's something in my soul I'm going to bless you from my soul, right? I see that this blessing is not just so that I can have good food and money in the bank, but there's some deeper blessing in here coming from the soul. We've got to not be those who just see things on a shallow level. And sometimes that shallow level comes with a very fierce type of religiosity to it. An inability to really examine the scriptures on a deep level. What is the author really getting at? And this is why I don't like to get into huge debates. Like when we read Genesis 1, okay? And it's like, the main point is not, is it 6 literal days or not? That's the surface level stuff. And people just want to hang out there all the time and write books about that and if we go to quantum mechanics and put it together this way and that way, the 6 days make sense. And it's not even about that. There's something deeper there. There's God putting things into order out of chaos. There's God's sovereignty. There's God putting humanity at the pinnacle of his creation. There's God bringing in holiness through giving us the Shabbat, right? There's all these other deep things. So we have to even be careful when we examine the Bible. What is...
It even just gets to the fact that God is the creator.
Yeah, exactly. And so... So there's a form of fundamentalism that just, my gosh, it makes chaos out of the book of Revelation. Anything I can possibly take literally, I'm going to take literally, and there's no thought to, okay, what is the deeper thing here? All right, so all these troops coming in, that means China's going to amass a great army, and this represents tanks, and that represents helicopters, and it's like not any of the point of it at all. It's like the book of Revelation is revealing these deep things. Anyway, we need to talk about, I know we went through Revelation and preached on it, but not everyone was here for that. I would like to do just an overview of Revelation sometime. But anyway, just that deep thing needs to go on. Got a little off topic there.
To Rachel's credit,
Mm-hmm.
when they were both in the womb, God told her that the lesser would be the greater.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she always knew that was going to happen. So maybe even her and Jacob had talked about that. Maybe she had, through his life said, your promise to be.
Right.
Maybe there have been discussions we don't know about.
Right. There is no all bad or all good character in the story, right? There's something good about Rebekah's loving of Jacob. There's something special about this one, that even though he doesn't hunt game as well, he sees a little deeper. She got that word from the Lord. Did she go about it rightly? No, of course not. But there's something good here in her, right? We see something good in Jacob, right? Jacob is he at least, like I said, has that propensity to understand something deeper is going on here. There's something deep about this blessing. Did he go about it rightly? Of course not. So, we've got really deep characters here as well. Isaac, not all good, not all bad, right? The one who brings me the delicious food I love is the one that's going to get the blessing, rather than a real seeking of the Lord. But at the same time, he is imparted with the authority to give the blessing, and he does so, and he doesn't waver once it's done. I blessed him, he shall be blessed. Right? We've got mixed up characters here, good and bad going on in the midst of it all. So I think I would just like to end with this thought. And I think we're in agreement, at least that's the impression I'm getting, that this was not a good thing to do, right? You can't, that the trust, like Jan was mentioning, the trust should have been there. God gave Rebekah the promise, the older shall serve the younger, okay? That the blessing would be Jacob's simply because it's God's will. Who do we know? Yeshua is an obvious example. We'll get to that later. But who else do we know that maybe contrasts with this? That was willing. Okay, I've got the blessing. I'm just going to wait for God's timing. I'm not going to go out and grab it for myself. What's that?
David.
Yeah, David, right? So David's in the cave in 1 Samuel 24. And Saul goes in to relieve himself. Here's your opportunity, right? You can kill your enemy and you can become king. David's already been anointed king, by Samuel. So he knows he's got the blessing, he's got the promise, just like Jacob already had the promise. The older will serve the younger. That promise is already happened, right? But Jacob, through deception and colluding with his mother, steps over that boundary that he shouldn't have stepped over and grabs for himself apart from the Lord directing it and apart from trust in the Lord. And this will come back on him, right? You reap what you sow. And Jacob's going to be have all kinds of infighting between his wives, and he's going to be deceived himself by Laban and so forth, right? So he reaps what he sows. This scenario did not lead to a smooth life for Jacob. But David, he's in the cave, he's got the blessing, he's got the promise. He's the Lord's anointed. I'm not going to strike Saul. And he trusts the Lord, he waits for the time, right? And then, of course, this is epitomized in Yeshua. Yeshua, we'll go to Matthew 16, 16, verse 21. From that time, Yeshua began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you." But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." They both knew that the kingdom was to be Yeshua's, right? Yeshua knew this. This is similar to Yeshua's temptation in Matthew chapter 4, where Satan says, "Hey, just bow down and worship me and I'll give you all the kingdoms." No, that's not the way God wants me to do it, right? Peter's saying the same thing. I think that's why Yeshua is calling him Satan here. You can avoid the cross, avoid the death, avoid this whole messy stuff. You're the anointed king, just go and take it. No, that's the way of Satan, right? That's God has called me to inherit, but I'm going to do it in the Father's time and in the Father's way. Now notice both of our examples here are recipients of that kingship promise that we read about in Genesis 27 today, right? The blessing is associated with kingship now because of Isaac's blessing on Jacob. And then we see the two pinnacles of that, David and Yeshua, doing it the right way, right? This is the type of kingdom that it's to be, one that is submitted to the Father. One that doesn't just go out and selfishly procure and cross over boundaries that are not theirs to cross over, but one that submits to God, moves in God's timing, moves in God's way, and moves in God's love. This is a kingdom unlike any other, right? How many wars? I look back on history, and think about all the wars that are fought over land, right? I want that land. The whole thing going on with Russia and Ukraine right now. This belongs to us, right? That selfish desire. This belongs to us, and people die. Millions and millions of people die, and it upsets whole courses of history because of one man's, or sometimes a small group of men, and their selfish ambition. And they'll spin it around so that it looks like some kind of righteous war, right? Putin says he's defending himself against Nazism and such, and it's self-centeredness. And I know Ukraine's not, the perfect nation either, but still, it's that drive for stuff. This is my position, I should inherit it. And yet the kingdom of Yeshua, and David didn't even fulfill this perfectly either, but Yeshua does, right? Yeshua says, no, I'm not going to go about it that way. And it's a kingdom of a different nature. And when you read the book of Revelation, that same theme is brought out. How so? There's a pattern in the book of Revelation where you have John, who receives the revelation. He hears something and then he sees something, right? And what he sees is more accurate and more meaningful than what he hears, right? There's like a deeper reality to what he sees and what he hears. And one of those instances is he's weeping because the scroll is bound up and nobody's found worthy to break open the seals of the scroll. And somebody says to him, "Weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah is here." The Lion of the tribe of Judah is going to break the seals, right? He hears the Lion of the tribe of Judah. What does he look and see, though?
Slaughtered lamb.
A slaughtered lamb. It's like, no, the slaughtered lamb is an even deeper reality than the Lion of the tribe of Judah. That speaks deeply to his type of kingship. This is the kingdom of the slaughtered lamb, even more so than it is the kingdom of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. As much as that is also an accurate and powerful picture, the even more powerful picture is the slaughtered lamb. That's the nature of this kingdom, right? And then that needs to be the nature of the king's followers as well. If that's the nature of the kingdom we're in, then let it be my nature as well. Let me not go out and cross over boundaries I should not be crossing over. Let me not, in selfish ambition, especially if I put spiritual or religious language to it, reach for that which is not mine. Oh, you're not doing it right, let me grab that. Oh, I could do it better, let me grab it. Oh, that would do me some good. Let me spiritualize it so it's okay for me to go get it, right? And we have to learn now, just receive what the Lord gives you. Receive what the Lord gives you, right? And that's the nature of this congregation too. I hope it is and always will be the nature of this, that yes, if the Lord calls us to some great projects where we start to bring in hundreds of people, that's fine, if the Lord so calls. But if the Lord doesn't so call, let's just be faithful in what he has given us. Let's be faithful in the Word of God. Let's be faithful in worship. Let's be faithful in loving each other and in lifting him up. And let's receive what the Lord gives us with joy. However small or however big it may be, it's okay. But to be big because, well, the rabbi wants a full-time job in ministry, so we got to get big. But I can't say that, so let me put other words to it. No, we're reaching more people. You know, those kinds of things happen. We have to surrender ourselves. We have to die to those selfish ambitions and just say, no, Lord, I don't want that. Like Janelle was saying in worship today, Yeshua, that's all I want. You know? I want Yeshua. Yeshua, you have great promises for this congregation, for us as individuals, simply by the fact that we are your sons and daughters. And if my territory is just to be the greatest dad or the greatest mom, filled with the Spirit, that's my territory. Let me do it in joy, not grasping for more. If my territory, Lord, is just to preach to 10 or 12 people, so be it, Lord God. I will receive your territory, not go beyond it. Lord God Almighty, we want to submit ourselves, to die to selfish ambition, to live in the joy of your Spirit, to live in faithfulness to what you have called us to, not shrinking back, but at the same time, not taking on the form of a lion when we should be following the lamb. Lord God, we will receive what you have for us through our surrender and not through our ambition. In Yeshua's name.